Welcome, I'm Dr. Larry Deed. I'm a former president of the American Diabetes Association and currently chair of the ADA Safe at School program. We're grateful that you took the opportunity to view our materials today. ADA started Safe at Schools because we recognized two things. Firstly, children need to have their diabetes controlled 24 hours a day. And secondly, we recognized that children need adequate supervision to do that. But as science has evolved, it's become perfectly clear that children have to have their diabetes controlled all day long. They have to have it controlled at school. They have to have their diabetes well controlled all day long.
Because I have diabetes and I need to keep myself safe.
I think when a parent first enters the school system with a child with diabetes, now they feel supported that their child is going to be cared for, and it relieves a great deal of anxiety on their part.
Alex was diagnosed on December 19, 2007. I was so worried because when he was in the hospital, what's going to happen when I'm going to send him to school? So I find out there is a lot of support. His teacher, at that time, they were going to send her for diabetes education. It was a lot of relief when I knew that.
I always have to take shots in my leg, and I always have to go test my blood sugar before I do anything.
It's a huge responsibility for a kid his age, or any kid for that matter, but at the same time, in order for a parent to be able to give them any independence, they have to be able to handle the diabetes on their own. That's why it's absolutely imperative that the schools have a program in place so that anyone that these children come in contact with, they're familiar with it, because it is a very dangerous disease, and it's something that that needs to be addressed very quickly, and if someone is not trained to handle that, it can be a very unfortunate situation.
A lot of our students do their blood sugar checks right in the classroom so that they aren't missing out time away from their academic studies. They develop a close relationship with the nurse, with the administrators, with the teacher, because they know that everyone cares and wants to take care of their child.
Well, in the very beginning, it was incredibly overwhelming. In the beginning of the school year, we actually went and my mom and I met with each of my teachers. And it actually made me feel really smart and really in control of this whole thing, because I would go and explain to my teachers, this is how diabetes works. I might have to test, I might need to bring food. And they were all just so accommodating. They were really great about allowing me to do whatever it was I need to do.
I would always have a student who had diabetes, and I always wanted to be prepared to know what to do if that student ever needed my aid. You learn so much about how diabetes can affect learning. I think that was one of the important things I learned from the training, so that you know that a student won't be able to concentrate maybe as well if that student has a low blood sugar level. So I think it's very important for teachers to be trained, and as well as the bus drivers, anyone else really who comes in contact with a student where they can help to save a life.
If you do have diabetes, it's really no big deal, and you're really just like everybody else. You just have to stop doing what you're doing once in a while.
It's definitely an added benefit for the child to be able to have the teacher recognize the low blood sugar in the classroom. It can be treated immediately. We're not having them walk in a hallway. It's not taking a staff person a bit of time to get down to the classroom so that the student is waiting for that blood sugar to be checked.
You learn how to measure blood sugar, to give insulin, to count carbohydrates, to recognize highs and lows. And what's interesting is anyone can learn all of those things.
It's been a good thing to have a diverse group trained, because we can't always get a nurse in, have the nurse in the school. If we have the person that covers the clinic out and we cannot get a substitute, someone else has to take care of that student.
It's inevitable there may be an emergency. And so we try to prevent that by teaching people what to look out for.
For the field trip, it happened last week. That was the first time, but I was feeling comfortable because the teacher, she already took the class. and she was going with them, chaperone with the kids, and he went fine. He was under control.
My teacher is very smart. She knows a lot about diabetes. She knows when I'm low and she knows when I'm not.
We do a classroom care plan that lets the teacher know this is the time that a snack is to be eaten. This is the time that they've got PE.
And so I think that you're more in tune to teaching the whole child, which is, I think, the perfect kind of teaching, where you're aware of everything that might affect learning, including the student's medical condition.
The American Diabetes Association has produced these materials for Safe at School because we want you to be able to use them. We want you to be able to learn from them, and we want you to be able to help children with diabetes achieve all of their potential every day.
All school staff need some basic knowledge about diabetes. Diabetes is a chronic disease that affects adults and children. It cannot be cured, but it can be managed. Diabetes management is 24/7. You have to time and balance your meals, exercise, insulin, or other diabetes medications, and monitor blood glucose levels. Generally, food, stress, illness, or injury can cause blood glucose levels to go up. Insulin and other diabetes medications and physical activity make blood glucose levels go down. Glucose, also known as sugar, gives us energy. Glucose comes from food, especially carbohydrates. It's carried from the blood into cells in the body by a hormone called insulin. People with type 1 diabetes don't make insulin, while people with type 2 diabetes don't make enough insulin, and/or the insulin does not work properly. With type 1 diabetes, which used to be called juvenile diabetes, the immune system is involved. For some reason, the body destroys cells in the pancreas that make insulin. This type of diabetes is called type 1 diabetes, and it is when there is no insulin being produced by the pancreas. It's the most common type in children and adolescents. The treatment for type 1 diabetes is maintaining blood glucose levels with a balance of food, physical activity, and insulin. In type 2 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, or the insulin being produced isn't helping glucose enter the cells. Type 2 used to be referred to as adult-onset diabetes, but is increasingly being seen in younger people. Inactivity and being overweight are risk factors for type 2 diabetes, so exercise and good nutrition are important to prevent and treat type 2 diabetes in youth. Sometimes oral medications, insulin, or other injectable medications are also required. But whether it's type 1 or type 2 diabetes, the problem is the same. The body's own insulin isn't doing what it needs to do to move glucose from the blood to the cells, where it can be used as energy. Not enough insulin means there's too much glucose in the blood, because it isn't getting from the blood into the cells in the body. This is known as hyperglycemia, or high blood glucose. Too much insulin can cause the opposite problem, hypoglycemia, or low blood glucose. Diabetes management is all about keeping blood glucose levels in a safe range. Not too high, but not too low either. This means having access to the necessary tools, like a blood glucose meter, insulin, food, glucagon, and sometimes other diabetes medications, and the school nurse and school diabetes team, which can include teachers, the principal, school secretary, cafeteria workers, and others, in order to maintain the proper balance. For the student's diabetes needs, A plan should be documented in the student's diabetes medical management plan, which includes physician's orders for the student in the school setting and other written care plans, and distributed to the school diabetes team. Diabetes can be serious in the short term if blood glucose levels become too low. Over the long term, high blood glucose levels can lead to complications like heart disease, stroke, blindness, amputation, and kidney failure. This is why good care is important. While diabetes is serious and does require 24/7 care, there's no need to be frightened or intimidated. The needs of the student can be safely and easily met when the school diabetes team has been properly trained and works together. The school nurse and other school staff make up a team that helps students with diabetes be medically safe and ready to learn. If you interact with a student with diabetes, it's important to know how you can help the child succeed. Your first responsibility is to know which of your students has diabetes. Every student with diabetes should have a diabetes medical management plan, sometimes referred to as the DMMP. The Diabetes Medical Management Plan is also called other names, such as the Diabetes Healthcare Plan or Physician's Orders. The plan is developed by the student's healthcare team and family and is given to the school nurse by the parent at the beginning of the school year or just after the child is diagnosed. The Diabetes Medical Management Plan provides information about the student's diabetes care regimen for the school setting that the student, family, school nurse, and school staff who will be providing care when the nurse isn't available need to know. The Diabetes Medical Management Plan tells you when the diabetes was diagnosed, how capable the student is of taking care of himself or herself at school, has medical orders for blood glucose monitoring, insulin, and glucagon, a list of diabetes equipment and supplies, a meal and snack plan, exercise requirements, and what to do in an emergency. Knowing what to do is critical for the safety of the student because having diabetes means that blood glucose levels can suddenly go up and down. You need to know how to recognize a student whose levels are either too high or too low and what to do about it. We've got another module that goes into those details, but they're in the Diabetes Medical Management Plan. Finally, the Diabetes Medical Management Plan provides the foundation for the development of other important written plans.